Frothies. Daggy and Barney are back with you to get through an entertaining enough round of rugby league. Barn, we learn a bit about where some teams are at, and we perhaps question where some other teams are at. What's happening, champion?
Yeah, absolutely, we did. No, not a great deal, mate. Going pretty good. Change a few things up in the lifestyle at the moment, so feeling a bit better, looking after myself a little bit better than I have done in previous decades. So we'll see how that goes, but feeling pretty good today. Went down the park with the little one after school, and it was a sports carnival today. So
awesome.
She runs a bit better than her sister. She won a couple of running races, which was nice to see. So yes, but no, going well. Yourself?
Beautiful. It is good to see a smile on your face, young man.
Wait till Saturday night. We'll see what's going
Yeah, well, that's right. Oh, yeah, I'm good. I'm right. Tired. Just getting through July. It's a rough time of year for me, but
absolutely,
the summer's looming, so that's good. It's not too far away, and I'll be enjoying myself again. But it is what it is. Got to make money somewhere.
Absolutely.
But no, can't
People
complain.
might get their returns back and leave you alone for a while.
Exactly. So can't complain too much. Let's touch on some news. Just looking now, some injury news to kick us off. Jojo Fafita, couple of weeks for his injury, which it's just escaped me what it is. HIA stuff for Sean Blore, Stefano, and Egan Butcher all at HIA this week. And the big one for you, Barney, is you've lost Bubba Kennedy for the season, it looks like. That's not ideal from what they've produced for the last 3 or 4 weeks.
No, their attack's been pretty ratchet, and taking him out of it's not going to help. So.
I've seen Connor Tracy's been named this week. I wonder how much they considered maybe Nico back to fullback. And getting Trindle up and going at 7. But I suppose when you're 2 years down a path, it's tricky to make such a drastic change.
Yeah, no, I dare say. Obviously now it looks like Moylan's been well and truly put on the back burner. If he was going to come back, it would have been this week. I would have imagined. So, yeah, I can see that 7 and 6 staying. I'd like to see him play around with a bit, even if they don't change the numbers on their backs. I'd like to see Trindle play a little bit more first receiver, but we'll get into that when we talk about it. As you mentioned, to kick off the show, was a funny week. Just about every team that was under pressure to cement their spot in their 8 failed. And the teams without pressure, the couple at the top just played like nothing worries them at the moment and just went through the motions and beat up on a couple of teams. And the guys down the bottom really went out of their way to annoy a few of those teams trying to cement their spot in the 8. So it was a pretty topsy-turvy week. The ladder didn't change a lot, but it just compressed even more from where it was already. So.
But I do feel like there's a couple of teams which we'll talk about that can springboard, and there's a couple that the springs might have fallen right off the base of any board they had. But it is interesting. Also, I guess the only other real talking point is the sales of masking tape went over the weekend. Was anything achieved by that bold statement?
Well, didn't the NRL have made no comment on it, so it doesn't really. I don't think it has affected them too much. If anything, it probably stalls negotiations a little bit and gets them a little bit offside. But really, the only thing that's come of the whole thing over the last 3 or 4 weeks is just the media ramping up more and more of the rhetoric that they have towards the players at the moment and trying to make out that they're doing the game a disservice by what they're doing. So,
and this is nothing personal against any players, but the last 3 weeks where there's been no player interviews in any of the TV coverage, have you noticed one iota of difference?
No, nothing really. There's a couple of milestone games where you might have got a couple of nuggets out of
that's true.
A couple of media interviews, but other than that, no. You've still sort of seen some of it done on the Monday and Tuesday when they can speak to media anyway, and I don't think we've missed out on a great deal of stuff.
Well, they're actually they've actually probably cut the nose to spite the face, because it would have been perfect to have plenty of really pump up the NRLW and get some of those people in the media. But
yeah, absolutely.
There they are. Now they're going to complain that they don't get the coverage they deserve. But What a world we live in, eh?
True.
Signing news. The Bulldogs have continued their raid on the Panthers, signing Jamin Salmon for the next couple of years. Blake Taff and Liam Knight have also all gone there, the latter immediately. Taff, I believe, is a 2-year deal as well. Means something, I suppose, Brian?
A bit more bulk to their squad more than anything. I can't see any of those guys really pushing for a starting position apart from maybe Taff. But then again, he's probably realistically only going to be playing maybe a 14 role. I think he's still, again, more of a backup player. He may not even make that top 17 each week. So it's interesting the way that they've gone to put some pieces around. I really thought they would have gone for another one or two big men in the middle of the field. But
Well, the rumor is that Siswa Takiaho is on the radar next.
yes, I've
So
heard
we'll
that.
see. I know he is 32, but he's very good. And if he's still as good as he was a couple of years ago, he would be a very, very good signing. Look, they are signing people from successful clubs, but
Yeah,
you find that signing bench players doesn't change a whole lot. We've learnt that time and time
No.
again. Going and trying to either rating players, starting players of the equivalent quality of what you already had, or bench players from somewhere else. Does not, I just blokes like Connor Watson, for example, great players, but they don't change the direction of whole clubs. So I don't
hasn't
quite
really
know
had
what it
an
all means.
opportunity.
And
Poor
again,
bugger.
I shouldn't say that's not
But,
knocking him because
yeah,
he is a fantastic player at his best, but it's like he's been there and back again and didn't really change Newcastle or the culture around
true.
it. Speaking of which, new Browns going there immediately from the Bulldogs. They've cleared up some space there. Liam Martin staying at Penrith for 3 years. Tyrone Peachy's re-signed for 2, in addition to, we talked about Dane Laurie going there, so they've got their reserve grade stocks well and truly covered. I guess the next piece of the puzzle, who may well go to the Bulldogs or not, is Luai. He might get that money he wants at the Bulldogs or somewhere else, but he might well just stay and move on with Penrith as well.
Yeah, I dare say he'll get offered more somewhere else outside of the Penrith system, but whether he wants to play outside that system, I guess, is up to him. He's probably done his worth at Penrith. Obviously he'll be remembered as one of a club great going forward with the 2 in a row and possibly a three-peat on the way. So I'd probably realistically, as a player, for his legacy and for his financial benefit, it probably would be a better thing for him to step away from that system. But
He has had a very good
see what
month in the shop
happens.
window.
He has, hasn't he?
Yeah,
He's been very good.
He has been good. Credit where it's due there. Brian Kelly and Phil Sammy have both extended their stay at the Titans too, and put on some good football this weekend, actually. So
Played well over the weekend.
they'll be there till 2026. Jack de Belin has failed in his attempt to downgrade his charge, so he'll be spending 4 weeks on the sideline now. Val Holmes is about to go before the board as we record, I believe.
Yeah, a couple of minutes out apparently. The Bellam one, I'm surprised they didn't get it down to a grade 1, to be honest. With the 1 or 2 week ban, it didn't seem like one of the more cynical ones that we've seen in previous times. It still wasn't great, obviously, but and Val Holmes, I don't think he's got much chance of getting a downgrade, but we'll see what happens there. It's definitely worse than the one the week before. So
100%. I think he might be sharing a similar fate. But anyway, we'll keep an eye on that one. Anything else caught your eye over the weekend?
no, not out of hand. Yourself?
No, not really. Not outside of what we're going to touch on here. You did nab me by about 12 points in Supercoach for the record in our do or die
somehow
clash.
I managed to get away with captaining one said Valentine Holmes and picking up about 60 points. So you probably should have grabbed me there, but
Well, I
both
decided
didn't put
DC
our
was the
best
answer
teams
after
out.
all that, and he was not.
Nor was Nico or Valentine Holmes
No.
for me. So.
After captaining Harry the last 2 weeks, hey, he only got 150.
It's something.
32-10, the Brisbane Broncos kicked off with the Roosters in an entertaining game of rugby league. Roosters did come to play for especially the first half.
Did.
and the Broncos stamped their class here. You got some stats for us?
Yeah, we had 5 tries for Brisbane, 2 for the Roosters, 5 out of 5 conversions, played 1 out of 2. 1 out of 1 penalty attempts for Brisbane, 82% completion, played 66%. 5 line breaks to 1, 44 tackle busts for the Brisbane side, 20 for the Roosters. 12 offloads to 14, 1 forced dropout from both teams, 281 tackles made by Brisbane, 339 made by the Roosters, 11 errors to 13, 7 penalties conceded to 8, 1 ruck infringement against both teams, 3 inside the 10 infringements against the Roosters. Paddy Carrigan with 97 Supercoach points, Adam Reynolds with 80, and then 3 other Brisbane players before you got down to Daniel Tupu on 66.
They, as I said, the Roosters came to play here and matched them physically for a long time, but ultimately, to use one of my favourite cliches, it seems, class did prevail by the end. What do you make of the effort here?
It's pretty dominant by the end of the match, to be honest.
Yeah.
And there was a couple of those performances this weekend. This one was one of the more impressive ones, I thought. Though it was a complete effort from the Broncos. They didn't let up from go to woe. They were matched with some fire and brimstone, a lot of physicality early from the Roosters, who did definitely come and treat this as a do or die match. They fought very hard for long periods of the game, but whatever the Broncos seemed to try just came off perfectly. Whether it be short kicks back towards the post for Ezra Mam to scoop up and score under the post, or every time they went wide, they just seemed to. Obviously, there's a couple of breakdowns in play there, but more often than not, it seemed to hit the right man at the right time and create options out wide. Roosters, I thought, felt like they were sort of on the back foot for a lot of the match, scrambling, trying to shut down what Brisbane were throwing at them, even though they were coming, putting a lot of effort in there. They seemed to put on a couple of nice attacks, but they just couldn't make a dent on the Broncos in the first half. That scramble, they got one of the best scramble defenses in the comp at the moment, the way that they turn up for each other and are able to turn the opposition away on their own try line.
And that's held
It's
up
been
for all
extremely
season.
well. Yeah, absolutely. There was a little bit shaky at different periods early in the season, but yeah, probably the last 10 weeks have been very good with that scramble defense, and they probably saved a couple early. They defended extremely well. The ref got so excited, he decided he'd save a try himself as well, getting in the way of poor Tyson Smoothie there. It was a pretty good shot to stop him a couple of meters out. It's There's about 10 or 15-minute periods the Roosters seemed to get the better of the game. And they ran in 2 tries, but in between those 2 tries, there was an error that they gifted Brisbane one to get, which if you're going to get those 2 tries and try to get back into the game, you really can't be coughing up the ball halfway through it and giving it back for Brisbane just to run away and score points. So instead of it being a 12 or a 12-point turnaround, it only ends up being a 4 or 6-point turnaround, and yeah, it really didn't put the pressure on Brisbane enough when they did score those couple of tries.
There was also a
They
period
seemed to
where Jared
concentrate.
seemed determined to be sin binned. He
Yeah, he does that most
he
matches.
tried about. He had a version of all 4 illegal tackles in a space of about 4 sets at one point. He after the headshot, he
Correct.
stayed
Yeah.
on and he went for a half chicken wing one set, and the next set he was pretty close to a hip drop, and after that was pretty bloody close to a crusher. But he stayed on. He was up for the physicality, but yeah, I thought he was determined to find himself off.
Yep. The Roosters forwards were decent, but they concentrated their attack on the left-hand side and really didn't go to their right at all, which seems strange to me considering the guys that they've got out there on that right-hand side. Manu and Suaalii realistically didn't get into the game at all, but they didn't. Neither of them came looking for the ball either. So when you're in that kind of situation where you need your best players in and around the ball, those two really should be sniffing around looking for other options. You saw in some of the later games on the weekend, centers were folding around and playing double centers on one side of the field and things like that just to add that extra option. But it didn't come here from the Roosters, which
Well,
surprised me.
and then I saw there was commentary overnight that people outraged at the suggestion that Swiley was overrated again. Like, what are the people that are outraged watching?
Well, he has been this year. He's provided very little for the majority of the season.
Yeah.
He's been kicking a few goals here and there. His kicking's been quite good. There's goal kicking, but in attack he hasn't provided a lot for him recently.
Second half,
majority of the season, really.
well, no, especially not as an attacking option. We've seen him be given cracks at fullback, and yeah.
Yeah.
So I assume he's just trying to get through with both legs attached and off to rugby land next year. We need to give.
You're going to mention second half?
I was going to mention that we saw Pat Carrigan end up on edge in the second half, and all of a sudden the best lock in the game looked like the best back rower in the game for about 20 minutes. It was fantastic there, and I was so happy to see him cross the line in the season for it.
Absolutely.
In his 77th game. I thought he was fantastic whole game, but the second half especially a bit wider showed what potentially he could offer. Very, very good. And the other two I wanted to mention basically were just how good a form those Brisbane centres are in. Staggs is having just about as good a season as he's ever had as a complete season. He's so dangerous every time he touches the ball. Last 6 weeks, he started hitting people again in defence as well. He really has been fantastic in defence. With, as you said, that scramble, but also just the physicality around it. I think between them, they had nearly 20 tackle busts in this game. I think Herbie was something like 10. Where are we here? Talk amongst yourselves, punters. Yeah, 10 tackle busts and Katoni 6. And both look super dangerous. When you throw in your Cobbos, Mariners, and Arthurs next to them, and Reece Walsh setting them up, it's a very, very impressive backline.
Yeah, Reece Walsh seems a little bit off the pace in this one, considering some of the things he's done earlier in the year. But he did again have some moments of absolute magic where he just tore the opposition apart.
It was almost like he went away from what's been working. He wasn't really taking the line on as much. He was passing a lot before the line, even kicking a lot before the line at times, rather than really trying to hit the line or drag plays into it.
Yep. I thought Jared was very good, as was Brandon Smith. Their halves were okay without being good again. Billy Smith and Tupu were the best, obviously, of their outside backs because that's where they focused a lot of their work. Tyrell May and Radley had some strong work in the middle of the field, as well as Nat Butcher. They were probably their best three players for the Roosters. Jensen, Paliasia were both decent. Their halves were fantastic.
Yes.
Both of them had very good games in this one. Again, AJ just A-Ray just picking his times and moments. His kicking game is fantastic, and Ezra seemed ultra aggressive in this one, especially with his running game and his support play. So, which came off with a try there. I think may have even got a double, did he? Or got close to a double.
Yeah,
anyway.
close to a double.
But yeah, he was.
No,
I
he
thought
did
he
get a
was
double.
very good in and around the middle of the field.
And there was another couple he got quite close.
Yeah, they were. I thought they were very good. Walsh was good. Haas was very good again. Up near the best players on the field. Staggs and Farnworth you already mentioned, but Carrigan was the best player on the field by a fair way. Capewell was up there with him too in this game. It was probably his best game of the season for the Broncos.
Well, they're hitting their stride at the right time. Some of these injuries the last couple of weeks couldn't have happened at a better time because I'm not sure you would have got Payne, Haas, and Carrigan to have rests.
No,
so that those sort of 2 week, I reckon those 2 and 3 week breaks are invaluable. And we've seen
got one more freshen up in them too, don't they?
I think, and they've got to buy at the back end, I believe. So, whether inadvertently they've set themselves up for a real good run home for a team that we saw last year really gas out. I don't see that happening this year.
No, definitely not. There's no signs of it anyway.
I'm going to agree with you. And so, well, the Roosters done. They've got a pretty good draw, but I think they now have to win well all four.
It's going to have to win every single game and probably win one of them by 30 or 40 points.
Yeah, and
their attack hasn't been clicking for mine. I think Thursday night sees them completely gone. To be honest, I'm tipping the Eagles to win that game. So.
Wow. All righty, 3 points, Carrigan.
Absolutely. I had Ezra Mam as my second choice. I had Ezra Mam for 2.
Yeah.
I thought it was very good. And then I had Reynolds or Staggs for the 1.
That was pretty much my 4. You know, we said, let's go with Katoni. That's honorary mention Adam Reynolds, but he was fantastic and has been all year.
Absolutely.
Friday night saw the Tigers head to Tamworth to take on South's. Final score was 32-18. Barney will talk about this, and I'll sit in the corner and listen to some pan flutes or something.
It's kind of what you did on Friday night, wasn't
Close.
it?
Lead us on.
3 tries to the Tigers, 6 to Souths. 3 out of 3 conversions played, 4 out of 6 for South Sydney. A missed field goal attempt for Souths, 69% completion, played 80%. 425 plus running meters and 89 plus post contact meters for South Sydney. Give me 1 second. I'm going to throw something at my dog. Hey, stop it. 89 plus post contact meters for Souths. 7 line breaks to 8. 38 tackle busts to 33. 9 offloads to 10. 4 forced dropouts from the South side. 359 tackles played, 260. 12 errors to 9. 6 penalties conceded to 3. 3 ruck infringements to 2. Alex Johnson with 122 Supercoach points. Coruscant with 120. Isaiah Tass with 99. I thought Tigers fought really well in this. Fought well. They were competitive. Even felt like they were getting on top at times.
Caught me mad, but best. If Tigers had from the parts I allegedly saw, if Tigers had executed properly in this game, do they win?
You get very close to winning, yeah. Very close to winning. They seem to consistently trouble the South Sydney edges, especially in the second half, and created a lot of opportunities which just didn't get cashed in. As I said, I felt they were getting on top at times. Both teams weren't at their best trading errors and penalties, but the last 15, 20 minutes of each half just seems to be the Tigers' downfall in this game. What was it here? Like they did everything they seemed to make their life as hard as possible. The last 20 minutes of the match, they gave away 2 penalties, 4 errors, received 6 forced dropouts against them. Like when you're having to take 6 dropouts in 20 minutes, cough the ball up 4 times and give away a couple of penalties, like it's just runs like that seem to plague the Tigers throughout the season, where they just have a 15, 20 minute terrible spell and it ends, all chances of winning the game.
The other problem
is
that they become
in and around
they're incapable of weathering the storm as well. Like as soon as within minutes of one of those, everything you just mentioned, someone scores.
Yep. Generally, yeah. Great way to start the game, throwing an intercept to Alex Johnson. Bateman did a pirouette and hit AJ on the chest for him to run away to score, which has been embarrassing. But it was 1 minute and 30 into the game. Every time Appy hit back pretty quickly for the Tigers, which was a nice try again. He just seems to be finding the line recently, so it might be worth putting $1 on him for any time try scorer most weeks, because you probably get $3. But South, when they got good second phase play or quick play the balls, they really started to put a dent through the Tigers and make massive meters, which made life a lot harder for the Tigers to get. They probably they defend well for 3 tackles, and then they get a quick play the ball or an offload second phase play, and then they'd make 20 or 30 meters. So instead of returning the ball from their 30, they're now returning it from pretty much in the corner, and you know how hard it is to try and ruck the ball out of your own corner. Tigers, as I said, they created enough opportunities in this game, and that 18-20 looked like they had the better of the momentum. And then it all just fell apart, as I said earlier, with that last 20 minutes. Buller, Junior Tupu, and Brooks were decent. Papali'i and Twal were very good. And Pole and Stefano were great. Like these 2 young fellas that have been coming through for a little while now, they really stepped up in this match, and they were fantastic. Coruscant was the best player on the field. I don't care if you're a South supporter. You can't tell me that he wasn't the best player on the field in this game. He did save 2 or 3 tries off his own bat, scored himself, set up tries. He was pulling the ruck apart at different parts of the game, and I thought he was stupendous in this game.
He's been phenomenal since he's come back. Absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. Isaiah Tass, Tane Milne and Walker were all good without being tremendous. Cook, Kulamatangi and Ilias was strong. It was probably one of Ilias's better games. Not that he's had too many of those this year. AJ and Trell and Murray were all had a really good impact on the match. So they were probably the 3 guys that had the most impact for the South Sydney team.
How was Latrell's resumption?
Limited involvements, but seemed to chime in nicely, especially when the Tigers were on the back foot, running directly, running very direct and drawing players, and a nice cutout for AJ to score in the corner. Definitely that, you can see they're a two-try better team with him there, even when he's not playing at his best. He just creates the different options, and at worst, he can just bust the line himself and score as well. So he's definitely a threat for teams going forward. Considering that's his first game in 6 or 8 weeks, I'm worried about what he could do on Saturday night.
Yeah, but ultimately, I mean, there's a couple of things with Souths. They got the
They
2
got
points
bogged
here.
down a lot in this game.
Yeah, and they at their worst they can, and
Yeah.
I feel like they're 26 points now. Like I don't think they're a lock for the 8 here. And as we've touched on, they've come back from Tamworth. They're about to go to Cairns, I believe.
Perth. Playing
Is
Sharks
Perth
in Perth.
first? Yeah, Perth, and
Yep.
then they're going up north. They're not like they've got 2 days travel a week for the next 4 weeks. That's not ideal when you're trying to one keep Latrell's legs on, and two playing the way they have for the last couple of weeks.
Well, whoever loses this game at 7:30 on Saturday, you can pretty much say they're the first ones that are missing the 8, and then the other ones aren't even the one that wins probably no certainty of making the 8 either. So
the best thing that's happened to them is that the wheels have probably fallen off 2 or 3 teams that would have been in and around there, such as the ones we'll get to in a sec. But I cannot possibly entertain anyone saying that they're the only dangers to Penrith or the only couple of dangers to Penrith.
I agree with you there completely. I gave Appy 3 points. I had Murray with 2, and then I had either Latrell or Alex Johnson for the 1.
Yeah, I think give it to Latrell. That's fine. 46-16, a game I can talk more about, is as the Storm put the sword to another top 8 challenger, and I would say probably did enough to close out their finals hopes. All things being equal for the remainder of the year. You can do the stats, Barn.
We had 8 tries to 3, 7 out of 8 conversions, played 2 out of 3, 86% completion, played 74%, 239 plus running meters and 89 plus post contact meters for the Storm. 11 line breaks to 6, 45 tackle busts to 25, 14 offloads from both teams, 1 forced dropout from the Eels team, 340 tackles played, 362, 6 errors for the Storm, 11 for Parramatta, 4 penalties conceded to 3, 6 ruck infringements to 4, 1 inside the 10 against the Storm. Hughes with 156 Supercoach points, Harry Grant with 149, and Hopgood with 104.
It seems amazing to me to suggest anyone but Harry Grant might have got 3 points in this game after or at halftime, but he had a pretty good challenger. But that was all come off the back of the complete dominant, probably the most dominant forward display I can remember a Melbourne team putting out this year. I
absolutely
thought this spruiked at times. I know they're missing RCG. Forward pack from Parramatta was completely and utterly dominated. As a result, Harry Grant just completely had his way with it. 15, 20 metres looked like he had all the time in the world to put whoever he wanted, wherever he wanted, and was absolutely incredible for large chunks. And Parramatta pretty much had no answer. On the back of that, Jerome Hughes is a class running half that had all the time and space of the world and proceeded to completely and utterly tear them apart. And everyone else looked great on the back of it, Barn.
That's about it, eh? Those 2 guys just absolutely played with this Parramatta defence just on the right-hand side of the post for a good 50 minutes of this game. In between the 2 of them, if they weren't passing for each other, they were passing for blokes on the inside and outside of their shoulders. Just a short, simple passing game mixed in with some fast running and a few side steps, and they just blew Parramatta off the park. Both teams started pretty quickly. There was an error and a 6 again, which saw Parramatta get down there and strip Melbourne on the edge, which I thought was worrying signs to begin with, but was not a worry in the world by the end of the game. Once they they went for set for about 5 minutes or so. But then, as you mentioned, Harry Grant just really started to dominate in and around the middle of the field. As soon as there was a quick play of the ball, he was just pinning his ears back and running at markers and dragging them with him, and then providing balls for the guys on the outside. Lovely little split where he split Paulo and Gutherson and jagged in between the two of them to score early. You've mentioned, like, the whole game is summed up by Harry Grant and Jerome Hughes just terrorizing the Parramatta defence because they did it for so long. There's only a couple of passes wide as well, and which is concerning for Parramatta because they've been getting stripped out on the edges, and generally you don't get, like, when you see teams pulled apart like that just on the edge of the ruck. There's probably a bit more to the defensive problems than what's being shown up. Like, I know there was a couple of times where it was just an inside pass and guys were going through completely untouched. Like, the Aero scored one under the post, I think, off Jerome Hughes. I don't think anyone put a hand on him. The Harry Grant one out of dummy half, they both just tapped him as he went past.
Yep.
I haven't seen Parramatta's middle fall apart like that.
No.
For a long time.
Not in 3 years.
No.
Well, 2.5.
Yeah, it left me worried what the hell's going on there. Munster felt a little bit left out, so he decided to do a bit of dancing and stepping and scored a nice little try on his own over on the left-hand side as well.
Amazing to beat 6 blokes without a single hand on him.
Yeah, I know. And as I mentioned again, it was just blokes not getting touched. Penasini and Simonson were okay ball in hand again, but I say that pretty much most weeks. They're good with the ball. They get troubled without it. Moses, Cartwright and Paulo were very good. Madison was fantastic, and Hopgood was their best player. But there was some massive defensive issues for Parramatta in this one. Liero, Katoa were good. Munster, King and Welch were great. Like, I think that's probably King and Welch's best game that I've seen out of them this year, if not very close to it. As you mentioned, which was on the back of missing Nelson, and I haven't seen a dominant display through the middle out of Melbourne, and those two were a big part of it. Seve was good. Grant and Hughes were just amazing. Like, they were the best two players on the field by the length of the field.
Yeah.
Nobody got anywhere near them, realistically, at the end of it. So
this is as close as I've come to thinking we'll give them both 3, but I suppose in the interest of fairness, we'll go, what's our show? We can do what we want. But I think you have to give Hughes the edge by the end of it.
I ended up giving Hughes the edge, yes.
Yeah.
His stats were ridiculous by the end of this game. I know most of it was laid on by Harry, disrupting the ruck to be able to give him the opportunity to go and do what he did. But, it was, I think it was 4 try assists, a try, 3 or 4 line breaks. I wrote it down somewhere. Where did I write it down? Here it is: 20 runs, 185 metres, a try, 4 try assists, 6 tackle busts, 3 line breaks, 4 line break assists. Ridiculous. And Harry wouldn't have been far behind.
I suppose he
plus
can have
40
3
tackles.
Yeah, plus 40 tackles. 2 to Harry, and I agree with you, either Walsh or King for the 1.
Yeah, I threw Hopgood in there as well, but I'd probably say King.
Yep, I'm okay with that. Super Saturday kicked off with I was quite happy having tipped him. The Knights casting stouts over the 5th place Raiders here in a very average showing from the home team, but a good showing from Newcastle. What does the stats say here, Brian?
Yeah, 1 try for the Raiders, 4 for the Knights, 1 out of 1 conversion, 4 out of 4 for the Newcastle team, 2 out of 2 penalty attempts, and a missed field goal attempt for Newcastle. 72% completion, played 71%. 549 plus running meters and 113 plus post-contact meters for Newcastle. 4 line breaks to 6, 28 tackle busts to 42 from Newcastle. 5 offloads from both teams, 3 forced dropouts forced by Newcastle. 349 tackles, played 336. 16 errors for Canberra, 14 for Newcastle. 1 ruck infringement to 4, 2 inside the 10s against Newcastle. Ponga with 122 Supercoach points, Gay Guy with 97. Then you had 2 other Newcastle players before you get down to Whiten on 69.
Where do you want to start here? should it be the dumb shit Canberra did, or should it be the good shit that Newcastle did, or a combination of both?
Well, the Raiders look sore in this. Like they all look like they were all carrying injuries. They look sore. They look slow. They looked old. Apart from one or two players in the likes of Tomoko and probably Tarpanay, the rest of them all looked like they were busted. They looked like they were crying out for a rest, and possibly Ricky might want to give them a rest over the next week or two to try and just make sure they can cement that spot in the top five. Because for mine, they look like they've been grinding so long to get to where they have that they look like they need a bit of an ease up for me.
Yeah.
It really did catch up to them in this game. Newcastle, on the other hand, looked really fast, fresh, aggressive, willing to spread the ball to the edges, which has been Canberra's probably biggest issue this year of being caught out wide on the edges, which most teams do. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that they're horrible out wide, but they do get caught out there occasionally. Croker's seeming a bit fragile to me, sort of getting back to where he was last year. So there's some defensive issues there out this week. I'm not sure if that's the worst thing for them. But the enthusiasm for mine was the complete opposite, polar opposites in these two teams, and that's what won them the game, realistically. Canberra looked down and out after about 15 to 20 minutes, and Newcastle were that far up and humming and just doing everything they could to get the ball to swing from one side of the field to the other. And Canberra just couldn't keep up with them at all.
Agree.
I thought they should have won by more. I should.
Agree. Well, yeah, the way the back end of the game panned out was a bit flattering to Canberra is all I say.
Bit droll.
Yeah, leave it there.
Absolutely.
At their best, this say something. No, it's bold. At their best, this left-hand edge from Newcastle is in the conversation for as good as any in the game, and people have slept on it and still are. But Hastings going to the line with Ponga, and then Fitzgibbon, Best right now, the best we're getting now, and Marzu. It can be devastating. We saw that in this first half. It was when they're crisp and firing, as good as any, and in the back end of that half, they flicked to the other side and started bringing Dom Young into the game.
Gay guy in attack this year's been better than he has for a while, I think. Defense, obviously, there's some issues there, but his attack's been brilliant for a lot of games this year. You throw Frizzell in there and Dom Young on the end of that. That other side's not so bad either. So there's points on both sides of the field for them. It's just about being able to complete and execute, obviously, when they get into positions to do it. So.
And I think, and this is all,
which we didn't see at all at the start of the year, is
No,
why the opinions everyone held about them for so long was pretty justified to begin with. But they've completely changed. What, probably 8 weeks ago?
And that coincided with their spine being put in the right spot. And Hastings, the combination of Hastings Pong is now just fantastic. As I've said it for a month now, but the ability of both to go into the line and create space for the guys outside him, it's making Fitzgibbon look like as good a back rower going around, and to use a form line, he's pretty well exposed. And Bradman Best now looks like as I said last week, the Bradman Best we promised 3 years ago. He's now getting one-on-one with people and just steamrolling him.
Throwing some guys around, yeah.
Or getting it onto Marzu, who's doing the same thing. I believe, what's their run home, actually? But I would rather back them. I mean, they've now put 4 in a row together. I would rather back them to make the 8 than I would probably the 3 teams above them. 3 of those 4 teams above them. Cowboys, I'll forgive this week for now. But they've got the Dolphins, the Bulldogs, a real potential cracker against the Rabbitohs, same against the Sharks, and then the Dragons. They win 3 of those games, are in the finals.
Well, those 3 teams will play each other as well. So
yeah, they win 4 of those games, they finish 5th.
Yeah, so realistically, they only need to pick up one of those 2 games against Souths or the Sharks and hope that the opposition do them a favour when Souths and Sharks. Well, they'll know because Sharks and Souths will play each other this week. So
yeah,
if they win both of them games, they're pretty much cemented in the 8, and those 2 probably drop out. But You've also got Parramatta there, who's holding on for grim death. Manly, if they can string a couple together, it's just it's crazy. Anywhere up to, as you said, the Raiders still a chance of missing the 8 at the moment with their for and against. So
What?
even though their run is complimentary, but
Well, they've got the Dogs and the Tigers next 3 weeks. That said, that
doesn't
could.
mean they don't come out and put a spoiler job on them.
Well, this is the thing. If they're busted, they're now
Yeah.
get into a bash fest against the Tigers. Who knows what can happen? Tigers should have
Dogs are
beaten them
pretty
last time round.
dogs are pretty physical on the weekend as well.
Yeah, they had a bit more gusto, didn't they?
Did.
What do you do with both these teams then to wrap this comp up?
Oh, yeah, well, as I said, I'd probably rate Newcastle at the moment a higher proposition of making the 8 than yeah, I am concerned about the Raiders, to be honest. Even though they do have a complimentary draw, they looked extremely fatigued on the weekend, and I don't know what changes to get them back into, their middles looked like they'd had enough at different parts of this game. So there needs to be something found there. I know they've got the guys there to do it in Horsburgh, Papali'i, Tarpanay, Chucking Gula and the likes, but yeah, they need a lot more enthusiasm and energy out of them than what they got out of them this weekend. So
None of them are young either, which is the other concern. Yeah.
it's Newcastle got points in them, and I back them on their day to beat more sides than probably than anybody. Then they're going to beat Newcastle. So, but again, they have to have their day. We saw earlier in the year they had 2 and 3 games where they put together that were absolutely horrible. So it's just so up in the air at the moment. It's not funny.
If Newcastle win these next 5, right, off the 4 straight, do we have to start talking about this run from Ponga in like Kane 09 Pyland? Since he's gone to fullback.
You'd probably want to put 3 out of the next 5 man and match performances in, but
I'm saying if they win those 5 and knock off South and the Sharks and they finish 6th, it's a fair run because they were going nowhere.
Absolutely, it is.
They were
going
nowhere.
nowhere. They were getting beaten comprehensively week after week. It's yeah, Canberra up there in enthusiasm in the second half, but it was just too little, too late. The Tomoko was their best of their back 5 again. He has been week in and week out for that team. Young, Whitehead were good. Tarpanay was their best. Thompson, Frizzell were very good. Leo Thompson's actually starting to turn into quite a nice physical front rower there. Something that they've got going forward. Elliot Whitehead Elliot was very strong. I don't know why I put Elliot Whitehead. Whitehead was very strong in this game. Gamble, Marzu were very good. Gamble's actually starting to create quite a few problems that he wasn't creating earlier in the year on that right-hand edge, playing more of a direct running line, sort of like a back rower more so than a 6. But it's chiming in nicely with Ponga sweeping around the back and Frizzell on his outside edge as well. So
well, you mentioned
they're
Appy
working well
as
together.
Someone to think about for your multis every week. He has to be as well. I think he scored in the last few games.
Yeah, 2 or 3. Gay Guy and Ponga were deadly ball in hand. Like they were just causing no end of problems for their opposition. I actually gave Gay Guy the man of the match in this one.
Okay.
I thought what he did to release both Dom Young's tries came directly from Gay Guy. I thought he was fantastic in attack. Whereas Ponga might have been flattered by a few of the options he had on his outside, and it was sort of more the passing that did it than Gay Guy did. But Ponga definitely gets 2, and then I had Fitzgibbon or Tarpanay for the 1, but probably Fitzgibbon.
I'll give it to Fitzgibbon. He's probably having his best year as well. He's had his moments, but he's avoided the pumpkin going on too often, and he's playing well.
Considering he was a perennial pumpkin,
yeah,
there for a couple of years.
He was perennial pot plant. He was nearly. He was who the first award was named after.
He was pretty much.
Pot plant. 24-18, the Seagulls scrambled home against the Dragons in DCE's 300th game. Again, a game where I don't, you would have liked, if you're a Manly fan, you would probably want to see slightly more. But they were plucky enough, the Dragons, Barn.
I thought the Dragons were actually quite good. Probably close to their best game of the year. But we had 3 tries to 4, 2 out of 3 conversions, played 3 out of 4, 1 penalty attempt, one successful penalty attempt from both teams, 81% completion, played 68%, 430 plus running meters and 115 plus post contact meters for the Dragon side. 5 line breaks to 7, 26 tackle busts to 28, 11 offloads to 5, 2 forced dropouts from the Dragon side, 299 tackles played, 366. 7 errors from the Dragons, 12 from the Manly team, 8 penalties conceded to 5, 1 ruck infringement to 2, 0 inside the 10s against the Dragons, 3 against Manly. A sin bin for the Dragons. Jason Saab with 102 Supercoach points, Schuster with 86, and then you had 2 other Manly players before you got to Francis Molo from the Dragons on 77.
Yeah, well, take us through the Dragons' effort then. You're quite
Yeah, I thought
complimentary.
they played a lot better than they have, as I said, for a lot of the matches this year. They did most of the little things right, which you haven't seen out of them a lot this year. They played pretty high up tempo, committed. They were committed in defence. They didn't really give up. They had opportunities towards the back end of the game to just let the game flow and Manly to dictate terms, and they didn't do that. They were very physical, especially early. Sully got in there, bashed a couple of blokes. So did de Bellin, and Laurie was in and around creating a bit of ruckus in the middle of the field. I thought Manly probably were comfortably the stronger team in their creative play compared to what the Dragons were doing, but the Dragons kept coming at them. Manly seemed to slow down a little bit once they hit that 22-6 lead, which was probably part of the reason why the Dragons did get back as close as they did. But credit to them, they jumped straight on it, and once they turned the momentum, they would have scared the absolute bejeebus out of that Manly side, because they were coming to get them right up until the last couple of minutes, and it was as close as a minute and 20 to go, where the Dragons ended up getting pushed into touch with a scoring opportunity that they created down that right-hand edge. The sin bin for mine was probably a big one. It seemed to sort of let Manly, because Manly seemed quite frazzled up at that point when de Bellin did get sent to the sin bin, and the Dragons were sort of buzzing around and on top a little bit, and then Manly seemed to be able to sort of level out and just get back into the grind, and DCE took a bit more control in the field position stakes and kicking and stuff like that, and that was really what got them home. But yeah, to come down to the last set of the game, I thought it was a pretty impressive effort from the Dragons, and whether they continue that and try, obviously their goal now is to upset as many people as they can for the rest of the season. But yeah, I thought they made a pretty good fist of this one.
Yeah, no, fair. A couple of blokes I guess, had notes to wrap. I thought Cooler was very good in attack.
Yes.
Creating some chance, probably key to half their points, if not more. Just being able to, similar to what you said about Gago, actually, either create chances for Saab or just through his own
Get his
work
nose
and pace.
through or break the line.
Yeah, I thought he had a really, really good showing here. And I guess Schuster, who has been, up and down and a punching bag at times for us, but had enough nice touches in this. Ultimately, he's going to be better back in perhaps a link 13 role, but was good enough linking up with him.
Yeah, I thought the middles were pretty. The middle was pretty much dominated by the Dragons most of the night. The likes of Little, Laurie, Burns were good. Francis Molo probably had his best game of the year.
Yep.
Dan Russell's been a good pickup for him, young back rower who's going strong. The halves were decent, and Sloan was very good at times. I thought he had a couple of nice touches again, but he does go missing too often when the game's there to be won. Jack de Bellin and Lomax were fantastic. They were probably Dragons' best 2 players. Cooler and Saab were great, as you mentioned. They had a nice combination going down that side. Lodge, Olakau'atu were strong in the middle of the field for the Manly side. Bullimore and Tuolagi were serviceable, maybe a little bit better than serviceable. And Jake just tackled his ass off without doing too much in attack. Croker, DCE were awesome. They had a big part to play in the attacking stuff that happened out of the Manly side. And again, Croker was one of my better players. He just missed out on the points, but he's definitely worth a mention. Again, how good he's been. I had Cooler or Saab for the 3 points. Didn't know which way to go. I went with Saab 3, Cooler 2, and then I had DCE or Lomax for the 1.
I'm happy to go for Saab.
I'm happy to
I had him
swap.
the other way around. I had Cooler.
Yeah, go the
as I
other way
mentioned,
around. Cooler,
but
DCE.
Cooler,
A Cooler
Saab,
Saab.
and Lomax, who has had a really
Lomax.
good 5 or 6 weeks.
Yeah, again, another one. As soon as he's got told he can move on, starts playing out of his skin.
Amazing, isn't it? And now
It's funny how that
apparently they're
happens.
talking about him starting a fullback next year, but I know that's been
Right.
tried before.
Okay.
So don't know how well that that might come
Be
through. But
received.
are you know, Manly probably aren't going too much higher than where they are now.
I wouldn't think so. Obviously, they've still got plenty of opportunity to do so, but I think when you do start getting to the better teams that with the rushing defenses, they're going to be able to do enough to especially shut down the middle of the field, which really stops their go forward. And then off the back of that, it makes it extremely hard to be able to unlock the pace that they've got out wide. So I think some of these stronger teams will wrap up that middle pretty easily and stop them. So.
Yeah, no, don't have much more to add. Main event Saturday, 28-0. The Sharks turned up at Bluebet Stadium and were soundly trounced. Would you like to talk about it, Barn?
Sure. 5 tries to 0, 4 out of 5 conversions, 0 out of 0 for Cronulla. A missed 2-point field goal attempt from Penrith, 87% completion, played 66%, 590 plus running meters and 202 plus post contact meters for the Penrith side. 4 line breaks to 3, 44 tackle busts to 27, 11 offloads to 9, 4 forced dropouts from the Penrith side. 2 times 40 20s from Penrith. So the one time the Sharks actually looked okay and were holding Penrith in their own end. 40-20. 301 tackles played, 407, 7 errors to 13, 3 penalties conceded to 6, 4 ruck infringements to 5. A sin bin for Penrith. Cleary with 109 Supercoach points, McGuinness with 87, Brian To'o with 84. What do you say? It's a fantastic team performance for Penrith. They started well and just continued to apply pressure, continually increase the speed and physicality of the way they were playing the football, and were well and truly on top of this Cronulla side. Once again, Cronulla continued whenever they seemed to be in a half-decent attacking position to cough the ball up and give it back to a Penrith side who needed no opportunity to add any more pressure than what they were already adding to this Cronulla team. I was glad that the defence didn't completely fall apart from the Cronulla side. They actually did turn up and put a hell of a lot of effort into keeping Penrith away from their goal line, which they had to continually turn up for and continually put in because they kept coughing up the ball. Like, I don't know when they're going to get it through their heads that the less time that you give the opposition the ball, the less chance they have of scoring tries against you, which just doesn't seem, seems pretty simple. Obviously, defense and attack work together. If your attack's off, you're just giving the opposition way too many opportunities at your end, and then your defense suffers from it. Vice versa, same thing. If your defense is horrible, you don't get in any good positions to be able to apply any pressure whatsoever. Sharks did get a couple of opportunities to do it, and as I mentioned, went out of their way to drop the ball. So Penrith were clinical. They're intelligent. They just went through, played to their game plan. Specifically, Sharks are more committed than they have been in probably the last month. They actually went out and tried to rattle Penrith's cage a couple of times. They got in their face. They didn't get the left hand didn't get blown open. The right hand didn't get it blown open. It was just consistent pressure, and then eventually it was always going to break, no matter who they played. I think Penrith puts 30 to 40 points on most teams this week, no matter who they're playing against. And I was just happy that it didn't get blown out to 50, which it probably should have, considering the amount of ball that the Cronulla handed back to Penrith.
Oh, part of that not getting blown out. Congratulations to Cam McGuinness, a modern day
My God.
tackling record, 81 tackles,
Mm-hmm.
which is an incredible effort. And it would be a short list of people more deserving, put it that way.
Yeah, absolutely. Like he just went out of his way. He's like the drunk handsy bloke at the end of the bar. Anything that went past him, he grabbed hold of it and tried to take it to the ground. He was fantastic. Blood spilling out of him left, right, and centre as he does most weeks. It's about time he got 80 minutes, and he showed what he can do in that 80 minutes. Not that he was given any opportunity in attack, which he also he adds a lot to this Cronulla. So he's been their best. Apart from when they were up and rolling and Nico and Nakora were causing problems in attack, he's been their best, most consistent player week in, week out, whether it be from the bench or with starting for this Cronulla side. And I'd be disappointed if they weren't seriously considering him to be team captain next year and starting at 13 and playing 60 to 80 minutes every week.
Well, the thing is that supposedly the Fitzgibbon template is that effort on effort and not making mistakes, which isn't really the trademark this year. But if you're going to base your game around it, you'd think he'd be, the starting point. And we know he can play.
Yeah, there
80,
wasn't many Sharks.
Not even
Sharks
60.
worth. No, that's right. Minimum 60. I wouldn't be surprised if he is putting out 80 minutes most weeks next year, and he should be starting 13 for him already. He should have been halfway through the year, but that's another story. Not really a lot of Sharks worth mentioning. Obviously, it hurt that Kennedy went down in the first 2 minutes or whatever it was of the game. Nakora and Hines tried hard, but again, too many errors. I thought Hazelton was quite good. I thought he was very good actually. He was given closer to 40 minutes here and was strong through the middle of the field, bumping a few blokes around. Jack Williams was another one that was quite good, getting a starting role now. That where Teague Wilton was defending, and I thought he had a very good game. But McGuinness was by far and away the best Shark. Taruva and Toto were very good. They set the platform. They were doing huge meters with that first and second hit up, and Taruva really got involved in this one to complement Brian Toto, and they killed it coming out of dummy half. Fisher, Harris, and Martin were very strong in the limited minutes that they had out there. Sorensen and Luai were awesome. Again, it's a nice little combination. Those two have really brought to the front of Penrith's game recently. And Yo and Cleary were brilliant. Cleary's kicking game in and around the try line was fantastic. Long kicking game as well with 40-20s. And Yo, again, since the last Origin, he's been absolutely brilliant in what he's been putting out.
Yeah, my biggest takeaway from this game is I think that Nathan Cleary's injury was the best thing that's going to happen this Penrith side because he was at his absolute best. This was the best kicking performance he's produced all year. Most comprehensive all-round kicking performance. What was it, nearly 790-something metres? 81 kicking metres. And as you said, 40-20s, nearly a 50-metre field goal. He's short kicking. He's built this was just A+ Nathan Cleary, and that's a pretty good grade by his standards.
Absolutely, it is.
And I would suggest, having seen that I would be shocked if he hadn't been carrying a bunch of little niggles and the groin issue and this, that, and the other. Well, he was because we knew Crichton was kicking and all sorts of things was going on. So freshened up. That injury has allowed every other niggle, I assume, to heal. And that's terrifying for the rest of the competition.
Absolutely, it is. Man of the match performance.
Yeah. I don't have much more to add. 2 points to Yo and, pick one.
I gave McGuinness 2.
We probably should.
To be putting out 80-odd tackles, and I think
we
he
should.
Near 100 metres as well with the ball in hand. And then I had Yo or Taruva for the one.
I actually had Luai in the conversation with Yo. I will make a point of saying he was brilliant in this game, and he's been brilliant the last month because obviously we've been harsh on him at times, but everything's clicking now for Penrith. And are they $1.09? Are they odds on to win the comp? Because they should be.
They'd have to
2.40.
be.
I reckon they're
Close
$1.90.
enough.
Only, like I said, it's two teams that can beat them, barring serious injury or the bus running off the road. It is very scary. The Sunday afternoon, it was going so well too. I was 6 from 6 up until Sunday. That's how it finished. As Bundaberg saw the Bulldogs fire a Matt Burton field goal on halftime, and maybe some wind around some goal kicking for Izako. We'll blame that. Defeat the Dolphins 23-22. But they were in the game, though. This was a pretty close contest, man.
Yeah, he'd be pretty upset with that shank to finish the game. It was in a position he would have backed
Well,
himself
I
to
would
kick
suggest he kicks that
95% of the time.
98 out of 100.
Yep. Yeah, Dogs 23, Dolphins 22. 4 tries apiece, 3 out of 4 conversions for the Dogs, 2 out of 4 for the Dolphins. 1 out of 1 penalty attempt for the Dolphins, 1 out of 1 field goal attempts for the Dogs, and a missed 2-point field goal attempt right on halftime from Izako, who didn't miss that by far either. 67% completion, played 76% for the Dolphins, 104 plus post-contact meters for Redcliffe. Well, it's not Redcliffe, it's the 28 tackle bust to 49, 8 line breaks to 7, 7 offloads to 13, 2 forced dropouts from the Dogs, 1 from the Dolphins, 323 tackles, played 305, 12 errors, played 9, 1 ruck infringement to 2, 9 penalties conceded by the Dogs, 8 conceded by the Dolphins. Jeremy Marshall-King with 95 Supercoach points, Jared Wallace with 95, and young Wilson with 89 for the Bulldogs.
And I do
Got
still
stuck
like
into
him.
each other in this one.
Mm.
They very physical. I expected more of a game of touch footy, to be honest, than which didn't really eventuate at any point. They were pretty keen on getting stuck into each other and be physical in the middle of the field, and it ended up being a very good matchup actually, which I thought the Dogs probably just won at the back end of the game. Nice try to start off with Izako going down the right hand side for the Dolphins, and then Kikau's long awaited return ended up in the meat pie nice and early in the game. You could just see that coming. They were setting up for it for about 5 or 10 minutes before it happened. They kept looking for him, and then, they got him close enough, and he just barreled over a couple of them. He's quite good in this game, I thought, as well. Avril Burns had some really nice pace and burnt their opposition. Burns, I thought, was very good in this game.
Yeah, I thought it was fantastic.
Stats don't line up as him being like ultra brilliant or anything like that, but I thought he had some really good moments in this game to up against his opposition in Aitken out there, and they actually took turns for about 15 minutes of just burning each other. one had beat, turn around, and Aitken would do the same back to Burns, and that went on for probably 10 or 15 minutes where they're just terrorizing each other on an edge. And it was a good matchup. It was probably one of the better matchups in the game. Dogs seem to get the ascendancy in the middle of the field, which I don't think I've said more than 2 or 3 times this season. It was good to see, to be honest. But the Dolphins did look more threatening out wide and creating a few more opportunities than probably the Dogs did at different times. And I'm not sure what happened there, but they just didn't seem to be able to finish them off the way that they have done earlier in the year. Hammer didn't seem to chime in as much as he was. The halves sort of got bogged down a couple of times, but
I don't know how disjointed it is from the swapping. Yeah, Nicarima, Milford, Hammer, Nicarima, Milford,
true.
O'Sullivan, the 5'8", who's not here, who I've just had a brain freeze on, Katoa. I don't know how much of that is that, but you've summed up pretty well. What key ones I wanted to talk about were Burns. I thought it was fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
You've covered off Aitken. There was a nice touch for that second last try for Taware. A nice run for him, I should say.
Yeah.
Taking plenty with him. I'm sort of treating this as it was what it was. Like I can't. Bulldogs are good though. I can't say they didn't deserve to win. Despite the fact that the game ended with a forward pass, a blatant forward pass that was missed, or didn't end, but that was the winning try. I thought for the most of that second half, Bulldogs were probably the better team, so you can't really begrudge them. And so all these teams down there deserve some luck at some point. So
Yep.
that's my takeaway. What I'm going to say about the rest of them. My only other thought is I actually have some concerns for the Dolphins next season. In that we haven't seen any replenishment, like they haven't blooded
Middle of
the
the
young
field.
middles
Yeah.
yet. These are 35-year-olds now.
Yep.
That's probably harsh, but whatever they are, early 30s, mid 30s. They were the right signings at the time, but in a year's time, you would hope half of these are new faces. We've seen Lemuelu come through, but that's it. And I feel like mid to late next season, you'd want to, and Flegler's coming, so that will help.
Crying out for 2 or 3 younger
You need,
forwards. Yeah.
and I know they've got. I know we've sort of mentioned when we just haven't seen them. Some of those young, spruiked, underage Origin forwards they signed to start with. So I assume they're up the sleeve. I wouldn't mind seeing some of them before the end of the year, but
Yeah, you might in the next couple of weeks if
yeah,
they're out of the running in 2 or 3 weeks'
just see
time. You
what's
might
there
see
because
that
that's
happen.
sort of a concern I have that they did what they had to do to start a club, but now I wonder what's here in 12 months' time.
Good point. Yeah, very
Yeah.
good point. I thought Wilson and Carraz were good on the edges for the Dogs. You mentioned Burns was fantastic. The halves I thought had a pretty strong showing in this
Yeah.
game. King and Kickow were really good in the middle of the field. They caused a lot of problems there, and Preston was great again, just doing all that nasty work that most people don't want to get involved in. Asake, Taware, you mentioned, and Aiken, they were all good out on the edges. Cody was dangerous again when he did get involved. Nice little try there back into the game, or involvement in the try. Jesse Bromwich and Kafusi were good, or very good. As you mentioned, they probably need another 1 or 2 guys coming through there. Jeremy Marshall-King was awesome on his return again. He's another one that just tackles everything that moves, and it's got a good setup for him out of dummy half. And I thought Jared Wallace was brilliant in this game for the Dolphins. I thought he was probably the man of the match for
Okay.
mine.
Yeah.
Again, just working his backside out. Good, strong, aggressive runs. Some bit of a second phase play as well. So I actually gave it to Wallace. I then gave Preston or Sexton the 2 points.
We didn't touch on Preston, but two very solid
Probably
back row.
Preston.
Two very solid back row options now. Yeah, just maybe a quick word on him.
Oh, well, again, he's another one that he's starting to feel a bit like Jermaine Hopgood for mine. He's got a nice offload. He doesn't produce it as much as Hopgood, but it runs a really strong line. He's more than happy to just continually tackle anything that gets gets near him. He's got quite a good tackling technique as well, so you don't see him miss a lot. Still got some, still got a bit of growing to do into that body of his as well. So I expect that when he fills out over the next 1 or 2 years, he's probably going to become one of the dominant back rowers in the competition. But yeah, he had a fantastic game. And then Preston for 2, and then Jeremy Marshall-King or Sexton for the 1. I really only looked at Sexton because the Bulldogs ended up winning the game. He did have a couple of he had 2 try involvements, I'm pretty sure. But Jeremy Marshall-King probably had a better overall game than Sexton.
Yeah, I think so. Go with that. Honorary mention Braden Burns as well.
Yes, absolutely.
Alrighty, and we wrap the round up with the 22-13
Another surprise.
upset of the Titans over the Cowboys. Stats here, Brian.
4 tries to 2, 3 out of 4 conversions played, 2 out of 2 for the Cowboys. 1 out of 1 field goal attempt for the Cowboys, and a sin bin for the Cowboys. 13-10 at halftime, 82% completion played, 78%. 328 plus running meters for the Titans, 6 line breaks to 1, 47 tackle busts to 26, 10 offloads to 7, 5 forced dropouts from the Titans team, and a 40-20, 321 tackles played, 336, 12 errors to 9, 6 penalties conceded to 9, 1 ruck infringement to 2, 1 inside the 10 against the Titans. Philip Sammy with 99 Supercoach points, Khan Pereira with 98, and then you had 4 other Titans players before you got down to Cohen Hess on 63 for the Cowboys.
The Cowboys are an energy-based team across the board. Did this feel like they spent a lot of time hanging back in defence?
Absolutely, it did.
Yeah.
should have known better, like this comp's been that close. These guys have been on a tear for 6, 7 weeks. It was always going to happen. And it was always going to happen to someone against someone that you really thought was no chance of beating them. Like it's just the way that this season's played out that sure enough, it's the Titans. Nobody gave a chance to came up and they played quite well in this game, to be honest.
Well,
They
I don't say
were
they're flattered because they did
very,
play really well, but the fact that there was so much space, this Titans team was made for that.
Yeah, absolutely. And they ground up the meters early, but they really went out of their way to pressure the edges of the Cowboys, which probably not a lot of teams have done recently, just because they haven't had the opportunity because the Cowboys have been so red hot. But once they did get out there, the likes of Sammy, Khan Pereira, David Fafita were causing all sorts of problems on the edges for the Cowboys, and they just couldn't seem to find a way back in there. I don't know why the Cowboys were so stagnant in their defensive line. Hasn't been that way since 8-10 weeks ago when they were playing quite poorly. But yeah, as you mentioned, it was something that really did stand out with their defense sitting back quite a lot against this Titans team.
Yeah, and they've got the draw coming in a couple of weeks, but maybe fatigue just catching up after that run. They're about to get bashed up by the Brisbane as well. That's
You would assume so, yeah. The Cowboys looked well on top in the first little exchanges of the game. I think it was the Titans scored first with a nice break.
Yeah.
And then AJ off the kick off Khan Pereira. But then the Cowboys went sort of bang, bang, nice shift to an edge, and then a kick back across for Hess to score next to the post. And you just sort of thought, okay, this is the way this is going to go. Cowboys are going to score 2 to Titans every tackle and every try. And then the sin bin really seemed to kill off a whole heap of momentum for the Cowboys. And the Titans jumped on the back of it. As soon as they was down to 12 men, they were pouring through the middle with 1 and 2 quick play the balls, and then they were getting to the edges. And Sammy and Brian Kelly, I thought, had a really good game in this one too. There was a couple of times he folded across to the other side of the field and got involved with, setting up Sammy to go away and then put the winger away at the end of the play. And there was 2 really nice runs where he went into the line, drew 2 defenders, and got an offload around the corner. And both of those ended up in points for the Titans. They were a couple of really big moments, I thought, for them. And the Cowboys never really seemed to get back into it. Even when Holmes did come back onto the field, they just always seemed 2 steps behind the Titans, who were up and running by then and just didn't really let the momentum up. Campbell and AJ were buzzing around, causing a few problems. And yeah, the Cowboys just couldn't seem to slow down the Titans' attack.
What you said about Kelly, you can add to Khan Pereira as well. I thought he was great here. Again, suited by that up-tempo stuff, broken field. They're a terrifying broken field team when you've got so many like that. And then Jaden Campbell, popping in with his 25-minute cameo, doing the same thing. At their best, they should be scarier than what perhaps they're produced at times.
Fafita was really good on that edge as well. His consistency this year is what's blown me away. He's gone from being a bloke, as we mentioned, can tear a game apart in 10 or 15 minutes, but he's now putting 60 minutes on the back of that 10 minutes as well. So he's putting in 60 minutes of tough, hard, grinding work and then putting 5 or 10 minute spurt together where he can just, blow an edge apart once or twice in the space of 5 or 10 minutes. So.
Which is all we've wanted from him. And Mo matched him in meters in his 50 minutes on the field as well. So that all helps. I can't wrap a lot of the... Just trying to think who I really want to talk about from the other side. Valame's been a great pickup for him. Cool. He's a good try scorer.
Yeah,
He's strong.
Absolutely.
He's keeping old mate Felt out of the side, but
it's probably one of their better ones. Yeah.
Him and Tuolangi tried very hard, but there's not a lot else here.
Clean and Robson were pretty good in
Yeah.
the middle of the field for him, but that was about as far as it went, really. Chad was decent, and Cohen Hess tried in the middle, but I haven't seen the Cowboys pack get thoroughly beaten the way that the Titans did to them, and they're missing Tino as well. So.
I think the run's over. I think that'll do them. That'll do the Cowboys. You can pack up now.
Mm-hmm.
They got, as I said, they got Brisbane, and they got Penrith in 3 weeks. So,
Yeah,
4
could
weeks.
be quite a few bruises coming out
There
of
is
the
a
next
bye
month.
in there, which will help Sharks and Dolphins are the other two.
Yep.
If they play like this, it's right up Sharks' alley. I know Sharks have to find that alley again. They're on the wrong street
Yeah,
at the
Sharks
moment.
need to find
Um,
a fucking car to get
and
to
who
get
knows
moving.
what the Dolphins and they might produce. But I think that might be it. We'll finish on that note.
All right.
How are you?
I think we
Anything else, sir?
mentioned pretty much everyone from the Titans,
Mhm.
except for Foreign. I thought Foreign's
Oh
kicking
yeah,
game at the back end was actually crucial in being able to settle
he's
the
fired up
Titans
for
down
this.
and get them away. Yeah, he was getting his foot. He stopped quite a few little grubbers through and managed to stop them and scrap and grab the ball and turn it back over. His short kicking game towards the line at the back end of the game killed off a bit of the Cowboys' momentum trying to get back down the other end of the field. And yeah, I thought his experience and kicking game at the back end was very, very good for them. So, and Tanner Boyd did some good things as well. Aaron Clark was a very strong contributor as well,
Mhm.
which is another one that we probably didn't mention.
And Verrill's getting into some good work now.
Oh, Randall was fantastic as well.
Yeah.
I don't know what's happened to that bloke. The last 3 weeks, he's
Oh,
been
sorry, I
absolutely
meant to say
killing it.
Randall, but there was times he was running and he looked like AJ,
Yeah.
with a bit of space and time. So, he was good. He's been very good for him actually all year. So, how are you giving up some points here? Yeah, well, there's still a hope of this final side. They need to win all of them, so maybe not.
Yeah, they need to win them all, but yeah, they can cause some problems for the guys that are trying to get in there.
Mm.
I had Fafita man of the match. Just as I said, mentioned the amount of work he got through. There was I think there was a try in there and a try assist as well. I had Randall as with the 2 points, and then I had Sammy or Foreign for the one.
I think Sammy. Give it to him. All right, time to take it home, Barn. Your pot plant of the week.
Wong and Blake.
Okay.
I thought again he was very poor in this game. 3 errors, made 2 tackles, missed 3. He did have 13 runs for a hole of about 80 meters, but you can throw in a couple of times where he just was completely out of position and and exposed his inside and outside his inside men and his fullback to just being points just coming straight down that side, especially back end. That Warbrick try really shouldn't have been scored with him being so far off his wing once again, and it baffles me how he continually gets a spot in first grade. I know they don't have Sivo there, but surely there's a kid somewhere.
Well, you'd think so, yeah. In a similar vein, I'm going to go with Parramatta's first port of call, but I'm going to go with the Canberra Raiders outside backs. Actually, just thought they were just well exposed and sluggish at
Yep.
times, so they were put to shame by the sharp and crisp ball movement of the Knights. Have you got a slap this week?
Yeah, it's Braden Trindle. For mine, he's had 2 clear-cut opportunities now to do something and cement his spot in this team. He's managed to keep his position again, but he's a lot better than what he's been putting out these last 2 games. He does have a running game. He's got a nice short passing game and kicking game, and he seems to just be sort of running himself into dead ends at the moment and getting caught with the ball or making mistakes off the back of it, which is I don't know if that's something to say to his temperament and his mentality recently. It obviously doesn't help when your team's getting belted to bejeebers on all parts of the field, but I really want to see him step up and cement that spot and get into the halves position for the Sharks.
I'm actually going to slap everyone involved with the RLPA and NRL negotiations. The fact this is still going on a month out from the finals is frankly farcical. And just when you think about as well, like I said, they're missing the boat on the NRLW.
Started in Christmas, didn't it?
It started before Christmas. Yeah, because they were going to boycott trials, whatever they were going to do back then.
Yeah.
The fact, as I said, you're costing the NRLW its own publicity, which potentially is taking the food off their plates by
That's
not
a big
having
point, to be
exposure.
honest, because that would be a massive thing, especially with the kickoff to this season about how they could get in and around some of the girls in the game that
Yep.
are yet to be known. These new teams that have come in, it's very poor.
Well, and even like because I've watched a few games and I've fallen in love with a few players just through their efforts, and that's without knowing who they are. So get behind them and support it. And then you put on top of that, they would have planned this trip to Perth all year, a doubleheader in Perth to promote
Yep.
rugby league, and we got nothing. Duck egg from it. So get your shit together. Whatever needs to be done, whether it needs to be a hard line from NRL and start again or whatever, it's becoming farcical. So you can all have a slap. Who are we finishing with a salute for, though?
That has to be Jerome Hughes. I thought it was his best game that he's played. Obviously, duly assisted from Harry Grant there, but I mentioned the stats earlier: 4 try assists, a try, tackle bust, line break assists. He was absolutely brilliant, and I think it's the best game I've seen probably out of a half this year, let alone and out of his career. That's it's brilliant.
I'm going to salute the Penrith halves, but especially Jerome Luai, because I've been harsh at times, but he's playing quite well. I'm sure that Bulldogs contract is calling for him. And Nathan Cleary, again, he's not at his best season, and he was absolutely fantastic in that game. Just had the ball on a string, looked back to his best. I can't believe neither of us saluted McGuinness, but let's table that as a joint salute.
Absolutely.
And changing tack slightly, I'm going to salute Stuart Broad because I was up early this morning, but the days of me living and dying by the Australian cricket team are well and truly over. And to me, sport is theatre, and that was absolute theatre this morning, watching him get the last couple of wickets in his final Test match. Bloke, plenty of Australians hate, but well-deserved, fantastic career, and I enjoyed the finish to that Test match thoroughly. It helped that I had a buttload of money on England to win, so that made the lack of sleep even more worth it. It's been Footy and Frothies. Check out rugbyleaguemerch.com. Get some hats, get some beanies. Give us some feedback on YouTube. We've seen some great stuff on YouTube. Thanks to everyone who's subscribed there. Spotify, iTunes, Instagram, and Facebook and Threads. Take care, guys, and very soon we'll be recording our preview. Tune in for that as well. Catch ya.
Bye.